Well, I'm certainly glad to be here in front of all of you. The title, Persistent Challenge, I think that's important. Learning and development is always a persistent challenge. I'm hoping here there's a good deal of practitioners in learning and development in the room. The challenge we've always got is a number of whole things. Is how do we get at the top level strategic alignment with the corporation, and at the bottom level how are we going to engage all the employees to actually commit to moving through their career path. Now, let me tell you, I want to run this session here. There's a nice little group of people here. I want to run this session as a workshop. So I'm not going to tell you everything. I want everybody to join in and let's share some experiences. So I'm going to be posing as we go through a series of questions. I don't know all the answers necessarily, so I'm hoping you people in the room will join in and have some good conversations moving forward. But I know we always have a trouble with learning and development. First of all is getting alignment at the corporate top level. Are they really engaged so that we can pass it on down? Then do we have clear budget setting? Do we have clear goal setting? How do we get alignment of the people so that we move them forward? So what I'm going to do is very simple agenda. I've only got very few slides, no great pictures of process charts, no great lots of words. We're going to go through 4 steps. Greatest challenges, this is the big picture stuff. Then how do we reconcile business needs with individual performance? So this is tying the business level at the top with an individual. How are they going to contribute to the organization? And then what measures? Everybody wants to have return on investment, the holy grail of training, you know, life, the universe and everything. If we could solve that, we could solve world poverty, I think. But there are some methods. We need to see if we can share some thoughts around ROIs and measurements. And then technology. The world is bursting with technology in the learning and development field. We know it. Everybody wants the latest and greatest. How are we applying that? Are we applying that in a strategic level, or are we just applying that at a tactical level? And throughout, I'll probably use the word strategic quite often. And I want to make sure we understand when I mean the difference between strategic and tactical. I'm sure I don't want to teach you to suck eggs here, but strategically, we need to be aligned at the large picture level. Tactically, we deliver training, okay? Strategically, how we were aligning the overarching, all-encompassing training system with the needs of the business and the needs of the employees. So I think there's a huge difference between when we talk about those two different words. So let's start off with the first thing, big picture. And I want to find out in the room here, where are we with regards to measurable and achieved talent development? So this is looking, if you think about it in your organizations, at the top level, trying to align your entire learning and development program, align to where the business is and meeting the people needs. So if I thought of about a scale of 1 to 10, 5 and above being, I'm really on the line, I'm really moving forward with it, I know I've aligned my business units, my learning and development teams are moving forward, I'm getting returns on investment, I have some challenges left, but I'm moving forward very strongly. Can anybody tell me if they are to the right-hand side of that line? Are they above a 5? Is anybody here above a 5, where they're quite well aligned? And some of the large corporations should be reasonably well aligned. Yes, no, any hands going up here? No? Oh, well, okay then. So we've got lots of chance. So that means then that most of you, I hope, want to become more aligned with the business units and the strategic direction of the company, but you're struggling to get there. So maybe first of all, can I ask, since you've all got your hands down then, you obviously have some challenges facing you. What are your biggest picture challenges you've got in trying to get strategic alignment with the organization and therefore with your employees? Yeah, over here, yeah. Can we, I don't know whether we need a microphone or whether we can just shout loud. There's only a small group. There's only a small group of us anyway, so yeah.
I think the reason I didn't put my hand up was the word measurable. Because I think that, you know, I've seen some great talent development programs, and I think intuitively they are aligned with the business and they are working and they are delivering, but it's the measurement piece that I struggle with, because I think it's very difficult to know exactly what impact your learning and development has as opposed to the other factors that might have achieved the business result. That's the reason I didn't put my hand up.
No, I think that's a really good one. Measurement is, what do we measure? We all measure how many, bums did we put on the seats. That's easy. And in fact, some of our leaders say, oh, how much training did you do? That's the wrong question if you want to be strategic aligned with the business. You're moving up to, well, I gave you a load of money, what did you do with it? How did you drive my business forward? And that's one of the classics. Anybody else got a challenge at the back of the room here?
I just thought, gentleman's comments about there being an intuitive link to an intuitive line that was quite interesting, because I recently joined an organisation that had quite an established talent development programme, but the link to business strategy isn't overt. It is exactly that intuitive link, and again, we have no measures, so
yeah, that's
what success is.
That's right. We all think, oh yes, we're aligned with the business unit, but are we really? Are we talking their language? It's difficult. Anybody else got any big picture challenges? Maybe it's around budget. We're all happy with our budgets for training. No? Yes? Do you want more? Who wants more budget? Because as we all know in the world today, I want
to qualify though.
Yeah.
Are we talking about skills training? Are we talking about training people on the organizational values? So when you say who wants more budget for training, we should talk, because if I read your brochure correctly, there's lots of different products available for training, right?
Right.
So it's skills-based training, that's one thing. Or are we talking about training for commitment? That's very different. Because I think that would be an interesting thing to find out. If people really want more skills-based training, or do they really want more? Because as I understand most training spend, based on the data that I see, a great majority of it's on skill, all right? And there's some real debate in the training and development market about whether or not you get to a certain point where you're not getting a good return. You know, this is the thing about like retail. You can't train mean people. You can train mean people to do retail, but you can't train them to be nice, right? So, you know, we try to hire nice people maybe and train them to do retail, all right? So I think that's like an important question. Are we talking about who'd like more training for sort of the cultural and corporate ethics and that kind of thing versus skill? And I'm wondering what the answer to that question would be.
Anybody got any?
I think first there's a shift from skill to it needing to be behavioural. So that question about do we need more budget is kind of a bizarre question, I think, because we don't know what we're doing and what we've got.
Right.
And you know, more budget doesn't solve anything.
Yeah, the budget one's an interesting one. With the recession still going on, sadly, training is often seen as an overhead expense. If you don't have the alignment at the top level, then what's the value? Oh, let's cut training. Do less training. And you're right, it then tends to focus on what's the smallest amount of skills training we can do. We've got a new product, we need to tell the people what the product does. Teach them. We've got a new process, teach them the process. We are missing this part of the training, which you're right, is all about changing the hearts and minds of the people, aligning the people's mindsets with the corporation, making them want to work for you, as opposed to just giving them tiny little short pieces of training. I don't see the world changing much in the very near future. I don't see us in learning and development departments getting huge amounts of budgets to start doing lots of back to this experiential training that we did a few years ago, where we all climb up poles and we all hug each other and we all like the company. The point about those sets of training was, I think they move organizations forward very strongly, but they cost a lot of money, and the return on investment, which we talked about, how do you measure that? Your people are happier. Well, if only we could relate to happiness back to improvement at the bottom line. So how are we going to do that? Okay, so there are some large challenges at the big picture level. Let's go and look at now business needs versus people development. So companies are extremely good at, I'm not saying they're extremely good at what the result, they're extremely good at setting vision statements and mission statements. Everybody has one, whether they're good or bad. We then get asked to cascade those down to the departments, such as we then set department objectives into goals, and each of the individual people then get given a set of goals tasks, which may be hopefully aligned all the way up to the mission and vision statements at the top of the organisation. I want to talk a little bit about that and ask you some questions on that in goal setting. How many of you believe that when you set your goals, and I'm assuming you do set goals for your own personnel, write down, I don't know, some people may not, goal setting, usually at the beginning of the year, or right at the very end of the year, for how you're going to achieve something. What do you want people to achieve in the following 12 months? How many people feel that their goal-setting process, which is really down to the individual level now, is really aligned to the department objectives and then up to the corporate level objectives? Anybody got any thoughts on how that is moving forward? Are they happy with what they're doing? Do the people really get goals that mean something? Anybody any comments on that?
Yeah, so I don't mind commenting on that. And my name's Mike, by the way, and until very recently I worked for Vodafone. I was with Vodafone for 7 years, so that's what I've got in my mind when I'm thinking about this. And maybe I could just give a quick response to Elliot's comment as well, because whether we're talking about skills training or talking about, well, in my mind I was thinking about talent development, which was the theme you had up there, and you also talk about workforce commitment. So that was the type of training that I had in my mind when I made my comment about difficult to measure.
Yes.
I think that we worked pretty hard at making sure that there was an effective goal cascade model at Vodafone, and we every year went through a process where the board would outline the goals for the organisation, cascade it to the senior managers, and then our performance management process meant that a few weeks down the line that every individual would have a set of goals that in some way tied back, and our talent management system enabled people to see how it tied back. So if there was a goal about developing a particular part of the business, there would be goals that were cascaded, and you could see how your individual objectives related back to that. So it was something we worked very hard at over the time that I was there.
That's good. Yeah, that's very nice. I know in Raytheon we have a similar goal setting process. It's although Raytheon's a large international organisation, we do have a single set, so we're lucky we have a single unified system that anybody in the organisation can see from the top level company goals all the way through departmental goals down to the individual.
I think one of the things in that, of course, is it's quite important to make sure that you can see the goals of the senior people, so you could actually see what the goals were of the people at the top.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time in the departments themselves before we get down to the individuals really discussing how we're going to align ourselves back. Now, there's hard and soft, and I'll talk about soft goals in a little while, but most of the goal setting is usually hard setting. We want you to achieve an X% increase in something by Q2 or something. And there's nothing wrong, because you can measure those. What you've got then, though, is then, so you're taking the goals into the personal development. How are you then going to create the skills and gaps needs of the people that you can then put into some form? I use the word training loosely here. You can use training, educational, learning, whatever you want. Some form of learning intervention that will then help those people push to move those goals. Otherwise, what tends to happen, I know, I've seen it in many departments, you set the goals at the beginning of the year, we lock them all away, come about October, November, we're told, where are you against your goals? And there's a big, huge rush, and it's not well, I find that a lot in organizations, it's not well aligned. We are not using the goal setting all the way through the year to develop the personnel, be it hard or soft skills that they need. And I think that's something I certainly know, and on my organisation we're suffering from, is abandon the goals. Maybe they come out every 6 months, we have a 6-monthly interview and we look at the goals again. But take a hard look at when you do that, that you're really focusing on how is that individual really going to move the company and the organisation forward. The annual appraisals as well. That's at the end. Typically annual appraisals come at the end of the year where we come out with the goals. Are they really aligned or are they company inflicted? I've seen a lot of companies, yes, we do all this great stuff, and then at the end of it, the supervisor says, oh, I've got 10 minutes next week, let's sit down and do your annual appraisal. Tick the box. Oh, and by the way, can you fill out some stuff as well as to how good you were? And the employee who's forgotten about all their goals that year quickly rushes around, makes some comments, goes through, and they get, and then take their assessment. So, how do people feel about that? Are you really using this goal setting and annual appraisal to really focus on the needs of the individual? Because if you focus on the needs of the individual, you are going to raise their awareness with the company. You're also going to make them feel a lot better, because there's nothing worse than saying to a supervisor, I've got 10 minutes to do your appraisal, tick the box. Anybody got any thoughts on how do they feel? I mean, am I telling you things that you know this is what you, in your organisation, you have already? Or are you really so well aligned that you're giving everybody an hour, you're giving them plenty of time to sort their goals out, sort their objectives out and move forward?
I think, my name is David.
Yeah.
I think there's a problem with the phrase annual appraisal.
Mm-hmm.
It should be constantly, it should not be a system or a procedure, it should be embedded in daily leadership. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem of many of those systems. They might be aligned in terms of cascade and so on.
Yeah.
But psychologically or emotionally, they're not aligned, because it's once in a year show and once in a year we talk about that and so on and so forth. So if you embed feedback on results, but also on development, on how you feel and so on, and health and so on, then you will not have the issue. So I agree fully on you that you should focus on the individual, and I think we should move away from those heavy procedures that are seen as administrative and move towards more embedded behavior in terms of feedback and recognition, maybe more than appraisal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. If you wait till the end of the year to appraise someone and you rate them needs improvement, it's a bit late. They've wasted a whole year needing improvement and you've done nothing about it. It doesn't seem very... And they say, whoa, I didn't know that. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Well, because we're not in a culture whereby we're continually appraising people, continually openly sitting down with them. This is where we need an open dialogues with our employees, constantly coaching them, guiding them, supporting them. And that will again get more of the employee engagement with the rest of the organisation.
And most engaged people do not need appraisals to be engaged. On the contrary.
No. I agree with that. The appraisal, I think, why I said appraisals is aligned or company inflicted. The company wants at the end of the year you to have an appraisal and to rate everybody with, so did you meet, did you exceed, whatever. But you're right, if we could get away with that, that would be much better. But what would happen, what do you think would happen if we did away with appraisals? Let's face it, what would human nature lead us to do typically? My guess is nobody would ever get appraised. Unless you're a very switched on organisation, really humming and singing. But from what I understand in the room here, nobody put their hand up at the beginning to say everybody's fully aligned with the organisational needs anyway. Anybody else got anything on appraisals? Yeah.
Appraisal.
Yeah.
And I think that the point you made about the process not being important, not the documentation, I can't remember what I said, but the fact that we have to do these things on an ongoing basis is important. And what I've seen in many organisations is that it is the creation of, every year, once a year, you have to fill in a document, you maybe have to get feedback from others, you have to sit down and you have to provide an output. That process is what turns people off, I think, and becomes a company-inflicted process. I did work in one other very large organisation where all they required from a manager was a rating. It didn't matter how you did it, because they needed a rating for the salary review, they needed a rating for the talent processes. But actually, if you wanted to follow the process, there was a process you could follow, but there was nobody looked into it. And I do have this sneaking suspicion that a lot of the heavy processes that we make people go through, filling in forms, results in a lot of data that nobody ever looks at. It sits there on a system somewhere, and once in a, how many times it would actually come out and there's a problem or whatever. But I just wonder whether we overburden the process. I'm not sure.
Anybody else? Any?
One of the challenges that we are trying to tackle is again, it's the company inflicted process. What we're trying to do at the moment is train the leaders who will be managing these appraisals and managing the people and their development and addressing those needs. Is really trying to instill in them the skills that they need to be better at managing their people and addressing the development needs, so that we can move away from this once a year heavily overburdened admin process that they all feel. I don't know if anyone's really fully succeeded at a perfect leadership team, but I think it's all about leadership that we've started to focus on to try and filter that down.
No, I think that's a good point. The annual appraisal, also when you appraise someone at the end of the year, what happens is you remember what they did last week or the last month. You've forgotten what they did in January, February, March. Yeah.
You just remember the emotional parts.
Oh, you remember the emotional part. Oh, God, that was awful. Last week they were awful. Right, write them down. Yes, yeah, exactly.
The first thing that comes to memory.
It is.
But as human beings, every meeting with a line manager is an appraisal. So we're all looking for approval that you're doing the right thing. So really, it should be an ongoing process. It doesn't take much to review a project and say, follow up a quick email and say, well done, you're doing well there.
Yeah.
And just appraisal should be a collection of those years' worth of communications.
Yeah, we're trying to move now to, there was always a focus on everybody exceeds. We want lots of people to exceed the expectations. And in fact, we want, as organisations, we want people to meet the expectations. If they're meeting the expectations, we're moving towards, that is good. They are a solid performer against their grading and the tasks you give them. And the fact that needs improvement is not bad. We want to get to a culture where everybody needs improvement. So if you're moving the rating system down a notch a little bit, needs improvement does not mean you're out of here. But if the first time they know their needs improvement is at the end of the year, guess what? The employee's going to think, oh my God, you're going to fire me next week. What have I got to do? Done earlier on in the year in consistent meetings with the supervisor, that will have a whole different culture mind on what we mean by needs improvement. Yeah, you did a great job on that proposal over there, but there's some improvement needs I think we can do. Let's look at putting you through some, it may be training, it may be talking to some other people in the department. The answer to everything is not training, let's face it, it's not training at all. A lot of it, not more about it, is culture shift and the employee liking to work for you. There was just about rewards and recognitions. Often, of course, that annual appraisals lead to, do I get more money? We all know that. If you get that's why everybody wants and exceeds, because they all get more money. Great. If I get needs improvement, I know I'm not going to get a pay rise. Also, it can tend to lead to end of year bonuses as well. If I exceed, I'll get a big bonus. And there's been a lot of, and some of you may know, a lot of statistical data around this, that if the employee is, if his job is a mechanical job, turn a handle. The faster you turn it, the more money I'll give you. Guess what? They turn the handle faster every time and they get more money. If you set a challenge to people to make, say, a better proposal or a better design or something, and I'll pay you more money, I'll give you a bonus, it's been proven in many cases now that it is no better, the results are no better than the people who didn't get a bonus at all. Financially driven bonuses don't work for most higher level orders of management. Not even high level orders of management, high level orders of working. You're best off finding rewards and recognitions that are completely divorced from any pay type structure. For instance, giving them a day off to go and dream about something and say, hey, come back next week and tell me what you've thought about, because you're a clever engineer, I'm sure you've got lots of things you can dream, come back and talk to us. They will value that, a day off, with a chance to come back and tell you all the ideas, far more highly than I'll give you a £200 bonus if we win this job. Okay, so again, it's back to thinking when we set annual appraisals and goals and rewards, focusing on the individual, who they are, and what really drives them forward. And it's not financial typically. Most people don't all leave the company because I'm not getting paid enough money, I'll leave. Most people just don't do that, because where they go is no different. Where they go is where they have a challenge that they want to achieve. They want to grow within the company. And if the company helps them grow, that they will. Okay, any more comments from anybody on annual appraisals, rewards, programs? I mean, I'm sure you all have rewards. We have rewards programs where you have these little gifts and giveaways. People kind of like them, but they don't really care if they don't get them. Then there's a big argument, why did they get them and I didn't? I was on the program. In Raytheon, because we work on defence as well as defence side as well as the civilian side, we have some very long programs going forward. Sales and marketing, particularly the sales guys, typically you reward a sales guy more money if he sells more. If you're selling fast-moving product, you can do that. Tick the box, I've sold 100, I've sold 1,000. If you're selling, say, a strategic outsource training, or you're selling a command and control system to the military, it's going to take 2 years to sell it. The person that started, who actually started the thing, is not the person that finished. So who are you going to reward? How can you reward that? By the time you've finished winning an outsource or any large engagement, there are probably 100 people who've touched that program, be it the financial people, the contracts people, the production people, the operations people, everybody. Why are you just rewarding the sales guy then? Because he sold a, $5 million, pound, whatever, system. So again, think about rewards and recognitions. We are very strongly moved away from rewarding salespeople, giving them a low salary and giving them big amounts of money for selling, because we think that's an unfair system, and it puts conflict in the other people in all the rest of the company. Oh, the sales guy got a huge bonus, I got nothing. But I was part of the team. So again, we're looking at rewards and recognition, making them meet the organization, making them meet how everybody can get some reward, but not necessarily a financial reward. And maybe you just shouldn't give the salespeople big, huge financial rewards for selling more. I mean, how many people here what's your thoughts on rewards and recognition for people here anyway? Is everybody giving big bonuses, or probably not big bonuses anymore, but bonuses, financial? Anybody got any thoughts on what are you doing to reward the people, other than they keep their job? Anybody? No? You're not rewarding them at all? I knew you had something to say, I know, yes. Yeah.
Well, I'm speaking later on, so you have to stick.
Oh, you're going to do rewards and recognition, are you? Oh, all right. So we have to wait, do we? Very good. Very good, very good. Well, you can give a teaser.
So I'm going to speak briefly about how work is actually in itself a source of sustainable employability, and how I would say that recognition take part in maintaining the employability of the person rather than focusing on the compensation or remuneration part of it.
Yeah.
But it's part of the
yeah. But it's important. Employee engagement, which was what the title was all about, is not about rewarding people more financially. It is about rewarding them finding reward within the work that they do, such that they will support the company, support their colleagues, and have enthusiasm to grow. Much better to have a culturally aligned person who is enthusiastic, wants to grow the company. They're not usually that worried about huge, great financial rewards. I mean, they'd like it. If you ask them, do you want a pay rise, they'll say yes. No one's going to say no. Okay, let's move on then to the topic that was near to a lot of people's heart, was return on investment. Return on investment versus learning. As I said, it's a bit the holy grail of it. Everybody wants it. Not many people do it very well. And the jury's out in many cases. Lots of people will say, oh, yes, we can do it. If you look at the Kirkpatrick levels 1 to 4, level 5 return on investment, do a whole lot of calculations. Here, you gave me £500, I've returned £1,000 because I've sold more product or something. But if you want true return on investment and talking to the leadership such that the corporations understand that they give you a lot of money to do personnel development and employee development, then what are the indicators that you actually have alignment at the total learning and development system, including all aspects, soft skills, hard skills? What do you think the indicators are that you are aligned with the business in your learning departments? How would you know if you've got there? How would you know if you've got strategic alignment with the business in your learning and development department? Because if you don't have alignment, I can argue you can't show return on investment. Anybody? What would be some indicators? What do you think would be indicators that you're there, you've made it? No? Yep.
It's your customer reviews that will tell if you're aligned to what you want to do with the customer.
Your customers meaning?
The consumers or the customers of your company. If you do a customer review, then you ask your customers as well, how were you treated, for instance, if you're in a service company.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can link behaviors to the final outcome of your company, then I think you're aligned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It really depends on what your strategy is.
Yeah. You can treat the customers badly because it's cheap to do so.
Yep.
But you can also say revenue growth.
So you have to define what kind of behaviors you want to develop, and then you have to check if they're there or not.
Okay, anybody else got any thoughts on how you would know you are strategically aligned throughout your organization with the learning development group? Because to my mind, if your learning and development managers, leaders, are not at the leadership level, on the running the bit, not at the level of, not at the board level, but at the running the business board level, if you're not there with a seat on the table and not just listening, have a two-way conversation, you're not strategically aligned. You can't be. How can you be? If you don't know what your leadership is doing, if you're not part of the leadership group, and by leadership I can mean business leadership group, the business you represent, how can you be aligned? They don't think you're aligned because they're not inviting you into the meetings. How can you know where the business is going if you're not there? At these meetings, they're deciding the direction of the company's going in. They're probably deciding what new products and services we'll go into. If you're not there, you can't be aligned strategically. But having got there, I mean, with one of our largest clients, General Motors, where we do almost a total outsource for it, we've now got, and this is unusual for a supplier in this side, we actually sit on their running the business board for GM, General Motors. Now, why do they let us do that? Because they've realized that their largest training need and development need is in the retail network system. Most automotives, of course, have a massive, great retail network system. Business cycles in automotive, although they churn out cars very quickly, that car that's coming out has been developed 5 years before. The technologies that go into it are 3-4 years old by the time you actually get them. Because they trust us as a partner, we go into the running the business boards with them. We can then say, you've got new technology coming in, we can see where it's going, we can see how this will change your organization, how your whole retail network will have to change because of a technology coming in, or because of a new method of, there might be some governmental regulations coming in, there might be some total reorganizations of the workforce. Because we're there, we can not only react, we can be proactive in saying, well, if you organize we hear where you're going to reorganize all your workforce, have you realized this is the implications moving forward from a personal development point of view? And the fact that you need to set some budgets in place looking forward, and the fact that technology has moved on in training, we can help and support you in a completely different way. So that's where I think strategic alignment is all about. It is about being at the business leadership level. And what questions, also as well, what questions does the leadership ask you to know if you're aligned properly? If they ask you how many training days did you deliver, that's hardly strategic alignment, is it? That's like, I gave you a lot of money, I delivered a lot of training days. A better alignment would be, so where's the proof that you've increased my customer satisfaction by a certain amount? Where's the proof on a softer side that my employees are happier? Now, that's a very soft word, I know, but where's the proof that you have reduced my cost on warranty work? Where's the proof that you've reduced my spares holding? If they ask you those questions, that's a far different question to, do you think you need to put some training on? So think very hard about, are you then in your own learning and development people, are you really strategically aligned? And if you're not, how are you going to get there? What are you going to do about it? Hard and soft measures. We talked about hard measures. You will increase sales by 10% in the first quarter. Easy hard measure. You can easily measure it, not difficult. But what we're finding then is, as you move towards the more cultural aspects with the softer skills, people are reluctant now to set goals against soft measures because they're very hard. Because they are hard to, by their nature, they're very hard to measure. I want this workplace to be a happier workplace. I think it's a good goal. I think you could probably measure it in a different fashion than a hard measure. But we're going away, I don't know your organisations are, we're going away from those kinds of goals. The touchy-feely stuff, the stuff that really makes the organisation go. Because if you give me a goal to increase sales, again back to sales by 10%, I'll put processes in place. I'll have a Six Sigma. We're a big Six Sigma company. We'll put Six Sigma workshops in. We'll have boards all over the wall, blah, blah, blah. We'll do it all. Have we really brought in the hearts and minds of the people? How we engage in them? Because we're only going to increase those sales if we have a workforce much better engaged with a whole host of things going to place. Anybody have any, is anybody setting soft skills, soft measures in their goals?
What do you mean by a soft measure? Because I'm listening to some of the things that you're saying, and employee engagement, okay, that is something which is, I think in your terms, would be a hard measure, would it?
Employee engagement? No, I'd call employee engagement a softer measure. I mean, there's a scale from really hard percentage down to really soft smile more,
So I think that many of the things that you mentioned there would relate back to a hard, in my terms, a relatively hard measure of employee engagement.
Yeah.
It's then when the organisation itself makes a little bit of a leap. I know it's being recorded, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's when we should get everybody to just come and sit on one table.
You can sit, there's a huddle around, yes, we should have done that,
yeah. I think then, you have to say, well, the organisation has made a judgment that by improving employee engagement that you will get an increase in revenue, turnover, customer satisfaction. And I know there's lots of studies that have linked that can make those links, but I think setting goals like that, I see. Softer than that, I don't really know. I think there has been a move away into things which are more measurable. I'll give you another example. One of the things that we put in place was a manager index, so that every year it was kind of a 180 degree review, not 360. You weren't getting it from above, you weren't getting it from your peers, but your employees every year had an opportunity to comment on the things that you did as a manager, and therefore you could say, we put these managers through a particular program, and as a result, their manager index scores raised from this to this. But I would never see a let's make this a happier place to work kind of objective.
Would that be that's a good point. But would that be if we could measure it and achieve it, would that be a sensible objective to make? Let's make this place a happier place to work.
In my personal view, no. I think if you measure employee engagement, that's what makes the difference.
Good point.
A happier place to work.
Yeah, that's probably, you're right. I think that's at the extreme end of the soft skill scale. Okay, anybody else got any comments on the difficulties of setting soft goals?
Thank you. Just actually adding to the point that you've made, I think it's much more difficult nowadays, because if you say somebody's happy in their work, that might not necessarily be a physical place. So if you've got people that are home working, like we've talked about today, or people that work on other client sites, sometimes they feel more engaged with their physical presence as opposed to, because that's where they spend their time. So I think it becomes a lot more complex. The L&D that you provide people, it's not necessarily just about let's improve your sales techniques. It might be about, there's all this new technology, and if you want to engage with your younger employees, you need to, be on Twitter. They're all skills that people have to learn. So I think it just becomes a lot more complex, and everybody's experience of L&D and what that ROI brings back can be very different. But the engagement piece about how you feel about your role and your role in a company is for me in my business what's really important, because it's not about where you're based and the hard skills, it's about how you feel about how you're moving forward.
No, I think that's a good point, and the workforces are becoming, a lot of organisations, far more diverse, and it therefore is far more difficult to feel part of the family. So what engagement mechanisms should we be putting into place to make us feel part of this extended workforce? And I think a lot of that jury's out. There's a lot of social media stuff going on and stuff, and it's quite complex. The mechanisms we're trying to use, and I haven't seen myself personally anything that is going to say, here's the magic bullet, because there's no one magic bullet for any of this stuff. Okay, and then I think that's talked about return on investment is investment in learning and development solutions connected to the business requirements. This is back to, at the top level, it's not about measuring the training, it's about measuring the results of the training. We do a lot of work in measures of things like warranty work, in the automotive business especially. You could add it to the medical business or all sorts, and in the military as well we do. We can prove categorically that we have improved customer satisfaction through learning and development interventions, because the customer will give us all their customer satisfaction surveys around the world. They will give that to us. They will give us their warranty costs. They will give us their swap out costs of engineers. They will give us all of the facts and figures that they normally hold extremely close to their chest. And whether you're an outsourced learning group or an internal learning group, if you can't get access to those hard business numbers, then you have no method of proving your end return on investment. So I'd encourage you all to make sure that you really do get all of the numbers, whether it's, depending on what business you're in, the sales targets, the warranty swap outs, and this is a harder side of the business, of course. And you can then, what we then do is we're able to measure then, because we're doing it internationally, we can then measure the business down to the individual, if it's a retailer network, the individual retailer versus the region versus the country versus the organization. And as training, because we have access to all that data and we use it constantly, we can immediately tell the organization, have you seen in France, southern France, you've got a problem here with, I don't know, it may be customer satisfaction in this area. Why is that? The customer then can go and then send his field force out and have a look. And we can decide jointly with them, is that a problem training? Have we designed the training? Haven't we put enough culturalization into that piece of training that would help them with customer satisfaction? Maybe it's a cultural issue. Maybe it's the dealership manager. He doesn't care about training. In fact, we've done statistics, many statistics that show that the retailers, wherever they are, whatever they sell, if the retail manager spends less money on his training, CSIs go down, customer swap outs go up, bad, and they usually are fast out of business. But this is where training can really push return on investment to the organization if you really use those numbers and have access to them. And a lot of times, I don't know what it is in your business, you don't have access to them. They won't give it to you. Why? Because you're not at the top level, you're not at the strategically aligned, therefore they don't think of the value. Oh, you just deliver training. No, I deliver workforce improvement. I don't deliver training. Okay, enough about that. Investment in technologies. There's a huge change, sea change, I would say, in the last few years of using technology throughout the learning and development pieces to, in some respects, I'd argue a lot of it is driven by cost. If I can give you a piece of e-learning, it's going to be cheaper. Right, well, yes and no, right, as we all know. But it is moving forward. We're not going to stop it. If you have a diverse workforce spread across multiple locations, electronic mechanisms do work very well done right. We're finding one of the biggest changes we're seeing in electronic learning is the use of, and I'm sure you already, virtual classroom training. And I'm sure this isn't virtual classroom training Mark 1, this is the Mark 2, Mark 3 version where part of the virtual classroom training is a blended environment where you've got real integration with the person on the other end, with the instructor, bringing social networks and medias into the whole mix. So it's a very, very rich environment for virtual classroom training. We're finding that that is just rocketing up when we do international work now, the amount of that, whether it's with different languages, different people, different cultures. Huge change there. But what's the, and I ask you, all of you will do some form of electronic type learning and a blended learning system. What's the big things that may be holding you back from pushing it out further? Or maybe you don't want to push it out further. What are people difficulties in, again, not an individual piece of learning, coming out with a strategic alignment that we are going to move, we are going to get rid of our learning classrooms. We're going to abandon our giant, nice training estate we've got. That's going. We can't afford it. It's gone. That's a strategic decision. How are you going to implement then some other alternate means? What are your difficulties of pushing this further? It's very rich out there. Maybe you don't have any difficulties. Anybody got any thoughts on what's holding them back?
I think the biggest challenge of doing this and moving towards technology-based learning is that kind of learning is self-paced usually, and it requires a certain discipline of everyone to learn, and people either underestimate a person's capacity to engage in self-paced learning, either it's true that it's difficult. So, and there's some skepticism about that. If you take away all the, or a lot of central steering, I know there's learning management systems and so on that follow that up and so on, but self-paced learning requires a high level of consciousness with the person involved. And we've tried in the last 20 years a lot of e-learning and so on. And so far it hasn't been very successful, but now with the social dimension in it, social networking, the peer learning and so on, I think it might be more successful, but we have to overcome that skepticism about self-paced learning capacity, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of people associate e-based learning with self-paced learning. And I think now we're doing a lot of social media work where there's more interaction. And this is why I brought up the virtual classroom, because virtual classroom is not self-paced. It is the fact that you've got an instructor remote from the rest of the people. You don't have to bring all the people together. So it's a mix of all of these go together. And it's a shift from the people's mindsets. There are some organizations, and it depends also how is your workforce organized. If your workforce is organized such that, and there are some countries where they do this, where we have a very high uptake of e-learning, where the employee does not get paid when they're in training. Okay? There's a huge uptake of e-learning, self-paced, because they do it in their spare time. When you go to countries where everybody, most countries of course I know, especially in Europe, where we do get paid if we go on training courses, which is very nice. Everybody wants to have the residential course, a day long, we're here for 3 days. Everybody loves all this. But the economics are not allowing that. We notice, sadly, conferences we all notice that conferences are getting smaller. Even though in a conference we're sharing, we're not just learning, we're sharing experiences, we're enriching our lives. It's very hard. I'm sure all of you had a very difficult time convincing your bosses that they should spend the money for you to come here. But nothing beats, I don't think still, nothing beats good instructor-led face-to-face training. When we use electronic learning, let's not fool ourselves. It is a good and solid method. It's not the only method, and we hope certainly that instructor-led, good instructor-led, or should I say facilitator-led or coaching-led training still is a huge way to go. And the more it becomes facilitation and coaching, the better I think will be the employee engagement. Talking heads in a classroom are no better than talking heads on a video. In fact, I would say worse than a self-paced piece of e-learning if it's done right. But so many times we have the e-learning which is page turner, boring. But I'd argue that the page turner, if you want to put a little skill into someone, the page turner is still valid. Provided it's part of the blended learning, provided you still get the engagement at some point during that curricula of face-to-face. I was asked here, did I want to use some electronic mechanism that you could all have scorings and punch buttons? They said, I can ask a question, you can all answer, right? Now, if we think about that, sounds all very high-tech, why don't we do it? Everybody likes all that, but think about it. We're here in the room together, okay? I can see each of you, and you can see me. You can see who's asking a question. If we hide behind the technology, then what are we really sharing? Apart from a bunch of statistics on the chart, which will probably tell us what we already knew anyway. Doesn't help. So think about technology. Where is it applied? Now, if you were all in different countries and we were beaming me out and I could interact with you only through audio links, it would be a different case. It probably would make sense to use some who thinks this, who thinks that. But again, you've seen some of the statistics go up in many conferences. They're no-brainers. 70% of the people think training is good. Well, so what? You know, what am I going to do with that? So again, think about the technology carefully, what you're going to do. I would, in fact, what's holding you back? We did a lot of surveys on this. The biggest thing that's, funny enough, the biggest thing that's holding people back is the IT department, right? Because good e-learning, good electronic learning, especially if you start using video, requires high bandwidths. If you're dealing with international corporations, then bandwidth gets in the way. Corporate, more corporations are becoming very strong in their connectivity between each other. I want to put an application on that's really great for training. Oh no, you can't because it hasn't passed our corporate security. That is actually the number one, we're finding the number one reasons for holding people back is the IT department, which is a sad thing to say, but it is. And the more remote you get, the harder it becomes because you don't have the bandwidth. The more strong corporate, the more strong the corporate becomes with its IT systems. And as Raytheon being a partly defense company, we have extremely strong IT security systems. It is very hard. We sometimes have trouble ourselves in our own company getting sufficient bandwidth through our servers because of all the routing they have to take to get decent video coming in. So again, if that's the case, you cannot change it. You are not going to, look at the time here, you cannot change that. Live with it. Don't try and fight the organisation. Training is not going to get an investment of £20 million or something just to put new IT systems into place. It's not going to happen. So think about how we use those. Social networks. Anybody who thoughts on social networks at this point in time?
Yeah. I think in the entire story you're bringing, as seen from the point of view from being a teacher, I'm actually missing the point where there's the responsibility of every student going to follow one of your trainings or sessions or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think there are still a lot of people who are not really used to use, in this case, social networks, who are afraid of going to an e-course, just because they're not sure how to use it, and there's still, I think, a kind of reluctance from some people towards technology in the entire part. And on the other hand, there's also the part, I really hear a lot of things coming from the employer towards the employees, from following courses and trainings and development centers and whatever. But also there, I think there's a major responsibility of people just to indicate if or if not they want to develop themselves toward a better situation. And on the other hand, which courses they want to follow for being better in what they're going to do or who they are in certain situations.
Yeah. No, I think it's good, some good points there. Social media and learning, I think, is a hard one at the moment for us as an organisation. Everybody's using social media socially. We've all got our Facebooks, we've all got our blogs, we've all got a wiki, we've all got everything, right? Moving that into the training development organisation aligned with the company objectives, I think it's a very hard one at the moment, and I'm seeing some alignment, but I'm not seeing full alignment. I think we as practitioners have a lot to do to try and bring that in, because they're using it, whether we like it or not. They are using it. They're using it at work, they're using it at home. How can we? And they're used to it. How can we bring that into our learning and development environments? And you're right. Some organisations, they are at some levels, they are still afraid of e-learning and things. We see people whereby they'll put the secretary or a personal assistant in the corner, go through all the e-learning, check all the boxes for all the organisation. Cheating, in other words. You know, that's at one end of the spectrum. Other ends of the spectrum, everybody loves it and likes it. So, okay, good. Just last sentence. We've talked about a lot of these things here now. Trying to pull it all together. if you want to have talent development recognised within the organisation, you need it to be strategically aligned. Very simple roadmap. Right people, right place. Everybody says it. Make sure you are training, developing the right people. And by the right people, I mean the employees. This is back to we talked about the assessment process, the goal setting and stuff like that. Make sure you're giving the right people the training at the right place. And then you align your curricula. Curricula has to be aligned fully, again, back to the top level of the strategic organisation. It's not simply a set of courses. A curricula is not a set of courses. A curricula is aligned to the whole of the company's needs, be it hard skills or soft skills moving forward. The budget allocations, we talked about that. You're not going to get any more budget, but you need accountability for I've spent this money. What did I really get? How can I show my return on investment? And the right technologies. Technologies are complex. They're getting more complex by the day. There's a lot of people say, I've seen the new technology. I've seen a business simulation. Let's go buy one. Well, how's that aligned with the business needs? How's that aligned with the personnel needs? Just because it's a new toy on the block, go do it. Go spend $500,000 doing that. Well, it needs to be part of the alignment. And lastly, of course, we've talked about rewards and recognition, which is there's many more ways to reward people for what they do. And I'll leave you with a couple of thoughts at the end here, because I think we're just about on time now. What will you continue? Thinking about the strategic alignment all the way down to the personnel alignment about moving people forward, engaging the workforce better. What are you going to continue to do that you're doing today that's really good? What are you going to change based upon maybe some of the discussions we've had here today? What might you change? And then, can you overcome some of the barriers that you've talked about? We've talked about return on investment. We've talked about a whole host of things here. How can you overcome some of those barriers that we brought out today? Okay, has anybody got any closing thoughts on that? Have some thoughts about where you want to go, what you want to do? Think about it. It's important to know what you're going to stop as well as what you're going to start. Because if you don't stop something, you haven't got time to start something. So think about that. Okay. All right, well, I think that's about time, isn't it? Yep, good. Well, thank you very much, everybody.